800 other kinds.
You are listening to the We Only Do One Take Podcast. The only podcast in the world that is a complete shit show. Hello everyone and welcome back to the We Only Do One Take Podcast. It's the only podcast in the world that is a complete shit show. I am your host Turch, and with me is my co-host, the CEO that just found out about a fetish and maybe is into it. It's Kieran. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. I was also going to say it's a complete fart show.
It is.
Why am I saying that, Turch?
It is a complete fart show. And with us today, this is a very special interview type style of show. Very special guest with us today. It's the owner of I tried to say this like 50 times.
He spelt it out phonetically well in his notes.
Epproctophile.org, the host of the Fart Fetish Podcast, and the expert about the fart fetish. It is Raj. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. I don't know about expert on the fart fetish, but I appreciate that. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, look, today you're our expert, and that's the important thing. That's the important thing. So thank you so much for coming onto the show. So, like I said, a quick background in you. Like I said, you've got a website, you're a host of the Fart Fetish Podcast, and you got on my radar scrolling through the internet. I'm always interested to see exciting things, and like we had a chat just before we started recording. You know, we talked to guys that were into the ABDL community. We've talked to furries. We've talked to all a bunch of people, and we thought you were the next logical progression into the wide world of fetishes.
Well, I appreciate that.
Let's start it. Yeah, let's start it. All off, because I'm sure lots of people are saying, "What the hell is going on here?" Because that's what happened in our last episode about when we interviewed the ABDL guy.
That's adult baby diaper lovers.
That's right.
Yeah.
So what is eproctophilia, and where does the name come from, Raj?
Well, the roots I don't know. The scientific name of eproctophilia is wherever these fetish terms, the more scientific terminology comes from. I can't say. But simply, it's an enjoyment of flatulence. It's a sexual enjoyment of flatulence in most cases, I would say, or that's what tends to make it a fetish. I kind of separate fetish and kink as kink is something that you kind of enjoy, but a fetish is something you really need to enjoy your sex.
Right. That's a great distinction. I was actually going to ask what the distinction was between the two, because I think the two words do get jumbled up.
Absolutely.
And cross over here. So for you, farting is something that you need during sex in order to actually enjoy it.
For sure, and it can just be a fantasy. But yeah, absolutely. That is an aspect of my fantasy or my sexuality that I do need to climax or what have you, whatever term you want to use for completion.
Yeah, sure. Completion. Let's do that one there. Let's finish it. Let's do that one there, right?
So without any flatulence, there's no completion.
No. There can be some arousal for sure. Through just foreplay or making out or whatever. But yeah, no. Without some kind of fantasy, at least there is really no completion.
Look, that seems like a question we can get into further down the track.
For sure.
Further down the track. Let's start off with the whole... I like to hear the history. I like to understand the person, because I think it gives it a bit more of a clear understanding of how these little things develop. Now, I did read on your site that this started from a very early age and has continued on as time has gone on, but I don't think not everyone can read, especially people on the internet. So they like to listen. So Raj, how did this start out for you?
Well, I can only assume. I don't have any solid evidence.
That's okay.
Yeah, for sure. But the my best guess has always been my my family had a like free nature with the bathroom or farting in general. So like, using the bathroom with the door open, more of a just naturalistic idea to farting. I've had guests come on and speak about in their young age, their one of their family members used farting as like a heavy like joke or comedy aspect. So there was a lot of farting in that aspect. For me, it was just kind of like natural body function and not like hiding it or feeling embarrassed about it around the house. So my best guess is the early exposure to that led to some kind of fetishization for me. And I think that also is why I feel like fetishes may be inborn, because I don't think I'm the only person who's probably had that experience in their family, but many people probably don't develop fetishes despite having that same similar upbringing.
It's interesting that you say that, naturalistic sort of lifestyle, farting and all that sort of, because farting, I guess, in my family, and I'm assuming you, Kieran, even with my newborn son, farting is more of a comedic sort of thing, or something to really annoy your wife with.
Yeah, or fart jokes.
Fart jokes.
Plenty of fart jokes for the nieces and nephews.
Very much a staple in our comedy regime, I guess. And obviously was that something that you also had? Was it like somewhat comedic at the beginning, or in the youth, or even as you're going up, or like, and then transform like in maybe your teenage years into some sort of fetish, or was it always something that was never really like a funny type of activity?
No, for me, there wasn't really a comedy in it. Actually, there was quite a bit of embarrassment in it. Like if you remember Nickelodeon or other like comedy cartoon channels in the 90s, fart jokes were very heavily prominent as like throwaway gags or what have you. And these, when I saw them on TV, they would often make me uncomfortable if I was like, sitting in the living room or what have you. It almost felt like I was exposed in a way, even though no one had any idea. It felt embarrassing, but it is pretty common. Like the comedy angle is pretty common. I just never particularly found farts as a comedic, but that's not me throwing like shade. Like, no, I don't like people who don't like fart comedy or whatever. Like, not at all.
So the pull my finger joke is not in your arsenal. Is that what you're...
Not particularly, no.
No, fair enough.
Well, hang on. It could be in the arsenal. It just depends on the context.
That's right.
Of where the pull my finger is being used.
Right.
I've specifically used the word arsenal as well. It's one of those, that's the comedy mind. That's the fart comedy mind at work. What can I say? So one of the things you say on your website anyway, and I tried to read as much as I could. Kieran, I think, read more than I. He's literate, which is fantastic. That during your teenage years, you found communities online, and it continued to it helped you develop and understand your fetish. Is that right?
That is right. Yeah, I discovered a lot of it, or a lot of the. Just the fact that there was content online came through like the old Yahoo groups, which are no longer existent, but that was one place. But yeah, then there was often message boards, usually attributed to a content creator specifically. And that's where I met people, but more specifically to me, started writing erotica as well. And that's kind of a lot of my early exploration before the podcast and all that. I kind of explored the erotica arena of it.
Yeah, so and I did read that you wrote a lot of erotica, and I think you did the same. Was that again like starting in your teenage years and starting to build up with that community itself, or was that like when you started to get when you past that 18-year-old age, into more of your adulthood?
Yeah, pretty much. It was pretty much. Yeah, my younger years were like, I think mostly once the internet came about, it was finding things like, I think there's like a video, it was a parody, Oops, I Farted Again by not by Britney Spears, obviously. But yeah, that was on Newgrounds. And there was a couple other like similar things like that. So that was kind of my youth in like internet exploration. And then, once I kind of went onto forums and read a few other people's writing, I got inspired to write because I wanted to, there were stories I wasn't seeing and wanted to bring those about.
And what was I guess, obviously your first couple of stories, what was the feedback? Because I know that you've written over 200 now. I think I read on your website or something.
Sure.
Some crazy number like that. What was the initial, you said there wasn't much material about it early on. What was the initial response from your erotic writing, including the fart fetish?
I think because I write for probably a niche segment within the fetish itself, which is already niche, because I tend to write more of the domination end of things.
Right.
So reception was pretty mixed. Like the people who didn't see that or weren't reading writings that had that domination element, or how I was doing it, they appreciated it. But some people were like, this is really cruel. This is really, because I really, for whatever reason, enjoy that. That's kind of the part of my origin. Is like I look at my family background as like that could be the origin of the fart fetish, but where I started liking domination, which happened equally as early, I can't say. I'm not actually sure.
Yeah.
So you've got so there's an element of freedom in your childhood, and then sort of, so you're not the person who likes to receive pain. You're the person who likes to give the pain.
No, I am actually the person who likes to receive pain. I'm on the submissive or masochistic end, as it were.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So is being farted on, is that pain for you, or is that because you've got like dominatrix and then this what I'm trying to understand, the flatulence?
Sounds like more of a humiliation.
For sure. It is definitely, exactly. It is more of the humiliation angle rather than pain. And I'm not particularly into pain, like physical pain, as it were. But I am to like the humiliation, degradation, the loss of status, as it were, in that fantasy setting.
Interesting. And the domination aspect of it, you said that sort of grew up in the same sort of time with the fart fetish. So was it more the fart fetish is a subset of the domination aspect of it, or is it domination more of a subset of the fart fetish? Just for yourself, obviously.
Absolutely. Surprisingly, yes. Actually, you're right. The domination is the farting is a subset of domination. For me, the domination is required. Like just having farting without domination, or like, oh, you hear someone farting in the world, that really doesn't do anything for me. I wouldn't think about that later. It doesn't really excite me as much as like a more fantastical and dominating setting.
I mean, look, a lot of the questions that we got that got sent to me from other podcasters and our friends and people that contribute to the show.
Sure.
A lot of it was around what makes the fart so, I guess, appetizing. But one part of it was, well, does it have to be, look, the words that, I don't know if you have it in America, we call it crop dusting. I know that you know what crop dusting is, where someone just farts in a room and just continues to walk, like, or goes into an elevator, farts and walks out.
Right.
The crop dusting, very, quite an image. Would that be something? It doesn't sound like that would be something that you would be into. That's more just a bodily function at that stage.
Absolutely. I'm I don't know if it's my connection to the or my relation to the kink community as well. I'm pretty heavily into consent. So like even farting, like obviously if you can't stop yourself, you can't, some reason you cannot hold it in, sure, but to do so any kind of like sexual thing, or like to even like, it's kind of a little rude. So I'm big on like on these type of activities, especially when they're sexual, whether they be for the doer or the receiver, to be fully consensual and everybody know what they're getting into.
Because that was a number of questions I had. People wanted to know, if I farted in a room or someone else farted in a room, is that a turn on? But what you're saying is it's not in the setting. It's not. It's just someone sitting on the couch farting isn't going to do anything for you.
For sure, and I can't speak for everyone certainly, but yeah, definitely for me it wouldn't do anything because all that's necessary, that fantasy. Even I'd say that role play or what have you, but it's really the domination that's most key.
Okay, so you're in a setting, you're being dominated. What if they can't fart? Like the dominatrix, they can't... Because
produce.
I can't produce, yeah. I mean, when I want to produce a fart, I can't. And when I'm in a situation where it's like, God help me, I desperately have to fart, but I need to hold it in. Like, you know what I mean? It's always in balance for me. So, yeah, tell me what happens.
I think really there's nothing that can be done. Like I've been in sessions with Pro Dominatrix, for fart sessions, even, telling them ahead of time, them preparing in whatever way. But it's not something that you can control unless you do something like blow air up your ass with like enema tube or something similar, which has been done with me once before. But yeah, no, there's really nothing that can be done. I think, it depends on what the goal is. Like usually when you're with Pro Dominatrix, the goal is not to climax with them. There's not, generally a thing you do, at least in my experience anyways. But yeah, if I was in a situation where I'd like to, complete, then I would probably, take in the image in front of me and fantasize what I needed to get off. I think for me, for whatever reason, the idea of a fart and climax are like very intertwined. It's like that. It's like them coming out at that moment for me is just like, it's the thing, for whatever reason.
Right.
So you don't need them to. You can visualize the fart. You don't need to actually have the fart to climax.
For sure. Especially, I think with the proper role player domination in place, the proper like degradation or talking. Like if someone's just sticking their ass in my face, I think that could get dull or boring after a bit. There's activities that can be done there, but without like that aura of humiliation and degradation, I think it's a lot less exciting for me.
Because what I'm thinking of here is, it sounds like there's almost this element of surprise. Like you don't know if the fart is going to come, and gamblers, at pokie machines. They don't know when slot machines. Yeah, they don't know when that big win's going to come.
The gamblers, like they
they get these sort of like little wins, but they don't know when it's going to happen, so it keeps them there longer. And it's that I know it's coming, but I don't know when. Is that sort of similar in your situation? Like the dominatrix person, they've had a curry and onion and garlic, and the guts producing these fermenting these farts. And it could come, but it may not, or it may be amazing. Am I on the money there?
It's funny that you said it. So instead of big wins, it's big wins. Sorry, that doesn't really come across.
I actually thought I was going to give you credit for that, but I don't think you meant that at all.
Oh no, that totally went.
No, but it's surprising because I've actually never had that thought, but I think you're actually right on the money in something there, because I think a lot of it is that hype, is the build up to the actual fart itself. In a way, it's its own foreplay of like, I'm going to fart on you. This is what I've been eating. This is how it's going to smell, or you're going to suffer, or whatever. It's this idea of like building that aura to build that excitement essentially, and then to achieve that climax, as it were, whether it be a fart or an orgasm. Yeah.
So look, I think I got more questions in regards to that, but I think what I'd really like to know is your first sexual experience that involved farting as part of the sexual experience. How did you initiate that, and what was your end result that in that whole process, in that whole experience?
Well, on like excitingly, I suppose, like my first experience was through Pro Dominatrix. So I was relatively in my older days, my probably mid or late 20s, and I had found a dungeon that had offered like face sitting, and I don't know if they explicitly mentioned farting, but I had talked to them on the phone and they'd mentioned they could handle it. I did a walk-in the first time, which is not smart to do something with farting because it requires prep. I think the dominatrix I had at that time, did her best or whatever, and I got face sad or whatever, which is hot in its own way. And especially, pro dominatrix tend to be very good at dominating and creating this role play scenario as well, which is very nice. Yeah, but that was kind of the first experience, and subsequent experiences would just be returning to that dungeon with more prep, finding DOMs that were a little more maybe into or already practicing the farting. Maybe they were doing it on OnlyFans or their other personal settings. And then, going through those means. And that was up until I had my first, not my first girlfriend ever, but my first girlfriend that we actually made content together and other videos of that sort.
So, so I was going to ask, like, with all these sexual experiences initially, were through a dominatrix, through like calling them up. Is there a big, how does that discussion sort of go in the first place? When you call them up, what do you ask for if you want to try this out?
For sure. I find it's best to just be forthright. I had a hard time with that. That's why I did a couple sessions that were not quite as dominating or not quite as close to what I wanted early on, because it was taking me some time to be comfortable and to saying what I wanted. Even amongst people who are professionals in this industry, it's not always easy to be comfortable to admit it. It's partly why I started the podcast, is to kind of fully say, like, this is me, and kind of accept it. I'm not saying that's the right path for everyone to be so public about it. There's an ego pursuit to it as well. But I think along the way, I found out that I could help people that, are, maybe want to stay secret about it, but maybe want to tell a loved one or something like that.
So you said there's a bit of preparation when it comes to, that's why you have to call ahead, talk to them, this and that. Is it because obviously to be able to produce enough farts, like, does it take a lot of farts to sort of get you to where you need to be? And secondly, what component of the fart itself is the attractive part for you? Is it the smell? Is it the feel? Is it the what really
the
sound? What are those two things there? Preparation for the outcome, the output. What do you sort of need when it comes to something like that?
I think the unfortunate thing for me, and maybe a lot of other fetishists that have this, is a lot of the pornography in this realm is unrealistic in the sense of how many farts are produced, per second or minute, or like they're edited to be as productive as let's say as possible.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think it's really easy to get caught up in that idea and forget what a real bodily function, or how, infrequently, majority of people fart unless they have some kind of condition or other thing going on. So I think it's to answer that question, I think I do, tend to prefer, a large, boisterous number of farts, as in to say loud. In my fantasy, I tend to enjoy them. That's, an element of the suffering for them to be odoriferous or smelly, as it were. But I haven't actually been in the setting in which I've been in that particular, I haven't had a smelly fart around me in a sexual setting, as it were.
Right. So the smell for you is it's more about the audio aspect of it, and the feel of it, I guess. Because if someone's, I guess, sitting on you and farting, you probably want to feel it
for sure,
and then you probably want to probably want to feel it, and you want to hear it as loud as possible. But the smell aspect sort of secondary to those two things.
I would say so. And again, it's just more the practicalities of it. I think there's hygiene and diet issues that contribute to having smelly farts. So I think that's, asking a pro dom to, hey, let's do a fart session is one thing. Asking them to, hey, maybe don't shower for a couple days. I think you can do it, but it's a little more perhaps invasive, perhaps.
Yeah, that's it.
So you tied down when they fart on you?
I have never been particularly tied down. I've had my head in like a box, as it were, not particularly airtight, but so like she would be like sitting on a toilet type rim above me, and I'm just with a head in a box. That was the session in which she was using an enema tube to pump air, as it were.
Right.
Right, because you said earlier you like sort of like the humiliation sub component, but if you're not like tied down, you've still got a bit of freedom, can get away.
It's true. I think there's a in myself, there's a personality element of like accepting the submission, despite not enjoying it, but just kind of I guess submitting to it, as it were.
Understood. Fascinating.
Well, you sort of said that a lot of your initial sessions and sessions going forward were with a dominatrix. So that's obviously like, you call ahead, you organize it, you do all that sort of stuff. And you've only said in the more recent times, I'm just trying to remember exactly what you said, but that's when your current partner, I'm going to say?
Not current, no. Previous partner, but yes.
A previous partner, she was also into the fetish.
Not into the fetish, no. She was a pro dominant. I know, surprising. She was a pro dominatrix, but through my just my interest in it, she was willing to do videos with me, as it were. So
right,
yeah,
okay. So let's I really want to talk about that, but let's go back to some of your other partners. You were obviously into this fetish, and I'm just assuming you had other partners before this because you sort of implied that. Did you try to introduce this into your into the bedroom as well, or was that something you kept sort of private? And then, and if you did try to introduce it, how did you do that?
It's kind of twofold, of like two different parts of my life. When I was in the early parts of my life, I was pretty introverted, so I didn't have my first girlfriend until like 22 or so. And it took me a while to work up the courage to eventually tell her about the fetish, but we never really explored it. I wasn't seemingly ready at the time to explore it with a person. It was kind of just my personal fantasy. And I was happy that it wasn't like weighing on my shoulders, that it wasn't a secret from her, but at the same time, it just didn't feel right. And then now to more recent partners, it's almost like, because I'm so into that domination element, without a partner that can properly go in that direction, it almost not quite worth for me going into, because I think it's not. It's better if we have other type of sex, and I enjoy the fantasy, if I'm to climax or what have you. But yeah, it's there's seemingly a big separation, I guess, because of the heavy role play and domination element for me, that I'm not 100% sure if I could bring it with a vanilla partner, as it were. I almost would need to. Yeah. I find myself to be poly, so I would almost need to explore like a kink, side relationship or something like that.
So, can you climax in a vanilla relationship?
With only with the mental stimulation. You've got your own. You said
with the fantasy,
but you need the fantasy
in mind. Yes.
Yeah. In mind in the vanilla relationship.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm just saying you. So you're poly, which means I'm just going to do it for the audience, and I hope I'm doing it right, Raj. That means you like to have multiple partners, or prefer to have multiple partners at the same time instead of being monogamous.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And is it? You said you had girlfriends and stuff in the past. Is it always female relationships, or you? Have explored the other side as well?
No, I've always been heterosexual. I've never really explored that other side at all.
Because one of the questions that came through for us was: is it is it just farts in general? So if a man, in this case here being a dominatrix, or I don't know what the male version is called.
Sure.
But they were to dominate you and fart on you.
Dominatrix.
There you go. That wouldn't do it for you. It still has to be female. The female dominating yourself with the farting.
That's right. There are quite a few, gay homosexual fart fetishists in the fart fetish community. It is perhaps more prevalent, perhaps because of the stigmatization being less, with the stigma of being gay. I think having a fart fetish is a little less stigmatizing beyond that. So I think it's a little more isolating, I suppose, on the straight side.
Right. So can I ask now a very heterosexual question? We'll say, are you an ass man or a tits man?
No, I'm definitely an ass man. By far, yeah.
Good. So now,
God, imagine if the tits could fart.
Yeah, well,
tit man.
Yeah, that's right. So I guess
Actually, it's not bad. Could you write a story about, because Turch is a tit man?
That's true.
And maybe we could get Turch into the fart fetish. So maybe if these tits could also produce farts.
Well, yeah, okay. Kieran's just asking for he'll message you later.
I'll read it out on the
prices.
podcast
That's
for you,
right.
Turch.
So I guess my question is, I only into females. All that. I've completely forgotten where my train of thought was going with that one there.
Oh, sorry, I can't.
Probably...
I interrupt.
No, arse enjoyment. So obviously you're an arse man. My apologies. I've got it written down here. So does the size of the arse affect your enjoyment of the fart?
I wouldn't. That's I don't know. I'd like, certainly I enjoy a more voluptuous or what have you, whatever word you'd like to use, derriere, posterior. But I don't think it's a huge factor. But yeah, certainly I have I'm leaning more on the larger ass side. Yeah.
Yeah. All good.
Okay, sorry, I'm going to change track here.
Sure.
Some people listening to this would be very disgusted in hearing about farts.
Certainly, yeah.
And just in the kink. And in a psych perspective, there are at least two clear disgust pathways. I won't get into this, but some people find something disgusting and other people can go, oh, it's not that disgusting, right? So I'm assuming you've got other things that just completely turn you off.
I mean, certainly I don't enjoy everything. Absolutely. That's certainly true. I don't know if I have, I'm not viscerally, or put off by them. I think I'm more just okay, this doesn't do anything for me, but I can turn away slowly. I don't need to run, as it were.
Mm-hmm. I guess a lot of people would say the next logical thing from farting would be poo. What is that something that also have you ever thought about something like that, or is farts that's where you draw the line?
In reality, I would draw the line at farting. I don't see myself ever exploring scat in the real world. I've had golden showers. It wasn't super appealing, especially I think one of the things about golden showers is the practicality element. You can't just if someone's sitting on your face and in bed, they can't just start pissing on you, because that's just clean. You're gonna have to get a new bed. You're just so you have to get up, you have to kind of break the mood, move to a setting that is, clean up ready, like the bathtub or something, and start again. So it's not quite conducive to keeping in the moment of being dominated. But no, I wouldn't see myself exploring any kind of scat, anything beyond farting particularly.
Right. Oh no, I'm completely in that boat with you. I think that that definitely draws a line for me. So one of the things you talked about before was there wasn't much material for yourself, so that's why you got into writing erotic novels or erotic stories about the Fart Fetish podcast, Fart Fetish itself. What over time, I'm sure things have changed. Obviously, OnlyFans has been a big jump, and I saw you interviewing people on your podcast that create fart, I'll say porn, but fart videos anyway. Especially, I think Amy Farts was one I listened to not too long ago.
Sure.
What does fart porn look like now compared to what it was 5-6 years ago?
I mean, I think now it's quite diverse, as you might guess. Like, there's pretty much content for every type of niche. I still feel like domination, this is for my own taste, there's plenty of domination content out there. I don't find it to be believable or high enough quality in many cases. But there's plenty of other experiences. There's what I tend to call like the girlfriend experience, which be like, oh, my girlfriend, she's cooking in the kitchen and she farted somehow. That I don't have that type of fetish particularly, so I don't know what's thrilling about that particularly, but I do, I can empathize, I can understand, as it were. So yeah, it's really kind of now a du jour of just like everything's there. There's like, people role playing as characters, famous characters, and doing whether it be domination or more cutesy domination. And there's really a whole spectrum of like harsh domination, cutesy domination, girlfriend's a little mean to me, to the girlfriend's the sweetest thing and I want farts. So, she farts in my face or whatever. So, I think back in the day, I think again, it's just more diverse now. There wasn't, what I was missing back in the day was the domination that was particularly cruel or harsh. The stories that were kind of written with a disregard for the main character, or the character being tormented. Kind of polarizing stories, as it were. Because definitely, if you weren't into, if your fetish wasn't about getting dominated or tortured with this thing that you did like, you wouldn't be into that. But for me, I definitely needed that, and I'm glad I, happened to find at least some people that did too.
And I'm guessing within the porn now, it's more of there's more subgenres, I'm guessing. So you go like the wet farts and more the long farts or the consistent farts. You said like people edit like, I guess, compilations. So it's rapid fire.
Absolutely.
Whereas, like you said.
Yeah, there's lots of different things. I mean, people will do compilations, but even some of the creators themselves, the way they edit their creation, whether they use multiple angles or what have you, they'll make it appear as if they're farting, 1, 2, 3 after another, when, probably that took several minutes. Some creators even record one video over the course of like 1 or 2 days.
Yeah. And you were saying, like, in your experience, like, the smell is somewhat important to your completion. Is that right? Or
it's an idea. It's certainly an idea. It's a fantasy in mind for sure. I haven't, like I say, experienced a particularly odoriferous flatulence fart, but I do believe it ties in.
Yeah. So what? If you had a choice, what would be the preferred type of smell? Is it more of what type of smell is the best for you? Let's just say.
That's a good question. To be honest, I don't know. I could only go off, like my own farts sometimes when, I have them, but like, it's really, I would say just like, I don't know, sulfurous, I suppose. Like, I think it's just that intensity, but I think
more
it's
abrasive.
And I think it is, I think it's unique to each person.
I'm gonna add an element. Please describe your 10 out of 10 experience that you may or may not have had, obviously, because we're talking about smell, but what is the ultimate 10 out of 10 experience with sounds, bass, smell? What is it?
For sure. Definitely a loud bassy fart. I think, we have a tendency to, I don't think this is always true, but there's a tendency to believe like a larger woman or a BBW woman would have a more boisterous fart. So we could go in that direction, as it were. And I think it would just be like it's really hard to explain, describe, but I would say like eggy or like, I don't know, dairy laden fart, veggie fart. I'm not sure. Like, it would, having not experienced
someone
them.
Who really can't.
Yeah.
Someone who can't really, like, lactose intolerant type fart, like really abrasive-y.
Perhaps that
really like strong. Yeah.
perhaps that tends to be the description I use in stories often. So yeah, I would lean in that direction, but without the experience, I couldn't say for certain.
Excellent.
All right, another question. When you said you're more of a sub, like to be dominated. When? My question is like, why? What's the turn on there? What's the like? Do you know how this came about?
I don't. I. There's certainly something about being humiliated, losing my station. That's somewhat appealing. It's sexually appealing, in fact. Like I can't really explain it. I couldn't put an origin on it, but I know it was occurring very early on because one of my kindergarten fantasies, kindergarten first grade fantasies was like giants bursting their ass through the walls of like the classroom and farting kind of everyone into like a submission or what have you, a frenzy as it were. So yeah,
So when you were in first grade,
that's right.
like as in like a 6 or 7 year old, you're already thinking about giants bursting into the room and farting.
For sure. Yeah.
Which I, as a 7-year-old, would have found that hilarious.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like what a cool kid story. But you wouldn't have found that hilarious. You were somewhat interested or intrigued by it.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, it was definitely a I don't know if it was a early prepubescent type of whatever, but I was already like exploring myself at that age to those fantasies. Obviously not to completion, but I was already doing what young kids may do sometimes when they're excited.
So that's interesting, but that's still not submissive.
Sure, I suppose so. In my fantasy mind, it would be. But another one that may work is
'Cause you have it's the lack of control.
it's the lack of control. It is very much the lack of control. And I think we talked about like being bound, and it's not even really required. I feel my personality, as it were, or at least in this fantasy, is submissive enough that it would just be like, if someone tells you to sit down or whatever, I'll just do it. You don't have to, tie me up or like, do other things. I'll be just like, okay, you're the authority. I'll do it. I'll do that.
So in your professional life, then, are you quite authoritative in your job or in your position? Like, do you manage a lot of people, or is that what you do in your, I guess, your professional life? You are the authoritative one, and maybe in your sex life you are the opposite. Like that's what turns you on.
For sure, I wouldn't say so. I wouldn't say I follow that stereotype, which I'm sure is true in many cases. But no, for me, I mean, my family has a business, so I may be a manager or boss, but I mean, it's not really over a number of people, and I'm not really even. I don't enjoy that position. I don't really enjoy a position of authority, as it were. I'm more, just, I don't know. I'm just chill guy. I like to smoke weed. I'm a filmmaker. I'm an actor. Like that's the path I wanted to go down. I'm kind of in the business, the family business, as it were, just out of necessity. That's where money is made. So yeah, I would rather have a more idealistic life path, as it were. So no, to answer your question, no, I don't really have that authoritarian or authoritative day to day.
Mm-hmm. And your family knows you do this fart podcast and you have this fart fetish.
My family is, they're not the most involved, I would say. Like I think they probably do know.
Keep your sex life separate to your family.
For sure. Like I do have it listed on my Twitter, but none of my family looks at my Twitter. That's kind of like more of a there's many fetishists on Twitter. It's actually kind of a haven for many fart fetishists. With the permissiveness of adult content also on Twitter, it's become a kind of a safe place.
Cool. Well, let's talk about the fun stuff then, because you do run the other than your writings, you do run the Fart Fetish Podcast. I think it's episode 22 or 23 just came out recently.
That's right. Yeah.
Talk about that. Talk about why you started it, what you do on there. Yeah, give us a bit of a synopsis for anyone that hasn't listened to it yet, which I'm assuming is a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. No, I imagine so. I started it a bit out of an ego pursuit because I was at the end of my rope creatively. I was like not sure, I wasn't making, I've been doing film and acting for about 10 years, but I wasn't strategic about it. I didn't know what I was doing. And I kind of burned out like doing student films and a lot of unpaid work, thinking like, oh, I'll make it, this next one will be the one. And you just, you never know. And there's so many projects. It's just, you should be working for money rather than just like, some hope and a prayer. So, yeah, I started the podcast because I, wanted to have a show. It felt like something that I could, I was one of the few people that I could actually do, being someone who's been in this fetish for a long time. So I started it and I really didn't know what I was going to do. I started the first 2 episodes with basically a rant, as it were, just about, what I was... Yeah.
You just described our show.
Sure.
The last 230 episodes.
See, exactly. Kindred spirits. So, yeah, I was just kind of ranting about what the things I was seeing wrong in the community. And one of those things being mainly that, especially the straight side, which was the only side I knew previous to the podcast, was the lack of community. Like, it's a little bit difficult in my experience to get... straight men who have a erotic or adult content in common to kind of want to get to know each other any better. Like certainly there's some understanding of like, this is a fetish, but I think the longer you stay in these communities, the more you kind of want something more, whether it be a romantic partner, and hopefully find someone who's accepting of that, but also finding friends you can actually talk to, feeling actual acceptance. And I think that's also part of what I was trying to do. It's like I could finally feel like I can embrace this this fetish, almost like I was kind of shedding the last layers of secrecy, because I feel myself a pretty open person, but this fetish was kind of the last barrier to me not sharing myself.
And since those first 2 episodes, from what I can see, like I think I said before, lots of guests on that are part of the community and just trying to understand them, just like we're trying to understand you.
It's precisely right. Yeah, I was fortunate enough to have the guest that came on my 3rd show, Damien, reach out to me and want to be interviewed, and that really opened my eyes and kind of changed the trajectory of the podcast from that moment, because it was very interesting to get perspective that I didn't have, despite me, having all this, knowledge of being a writer and being in, DeviantArts and different message boards and starting in Yahoo groups, having this history, and still I didn't even know half of the community at all.
That's great. And episode 22 or 23 is about to pop out, something like that. I think 22 just came out.
23 just came out on the last Friday.
23,
yeah.
My apologies.
No worries.
Oh, there you go. I tried to keep up.
Sure.
Yeah, and what's the latest episode all about? Like, who did you have on that one?
The latest episode is with Ruby Farts. She's a content creator, and what was surprising to me is also she's an advocate for disadvantaged groups like sex workers, homelessness, all kinds of marginalized communities that she actually puts her I guess her advocacy or her money where her mouth is with, she does sex work as a content creator, but also advocates for them as well. And it's just, as always, it's just very interesting to learn about people and their history and their past and how things got started with them. Kind of, it's almost like for me, I was trying to figure out my own origins. If I could hammer them down any clearer by talking to other people and seeing where they started. And there's some similarities with some and some many differences as well.
Yeah. No, fantastic. Look, I highly recommend listening to at least a couple of episodes of the show. Get into it. It's always a fascinating chat. And you're a fantastic presenter, which makes it a lot, compared to some other interview podcasts, a lot easier to enjoy the content.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
Which is good.
So Church is big on the audio aspect.
I try to make it as clear as possible. You can probably see all the musical instruments in the background. I
Right.
kind of care about the audio.
Yeah, absolutely.
Audio
Makes sense.
aspect of it. Kieran, you got any more
Look,
questions?
I have got one more question.
Okay, I've got a few more after that, and then we'll get some silly questions out. I think that might
Oh,
be
no,
fun.
mine's a silly question.
Oh, well, okay. Maybe I'll do my more serious,
I'll let you do a more... Go serious. Mine's a silly
Yeah,
one.
sure. So you said that you created content with your partner, the girlfriend that was also part of the fetish at the time. How did you go about doing that, and why did you want to create that sort of content?
I mean, to be honest, I think it was simply making money. Like I was, still looking for ways to make money outside of the family business. I was driving Uber, which is not fun at all. Like not, it doesn't fit my personality. I respect anyone who can do it, does do it, enjoys doing it. It's just not something I could do long term. So it was just kind of an idea. I enjoyed, being filmmaker and actor, I kind of liked it. I had some equipment. So it was just kind of like, yeah, this would be fun. I'd like to do this. And I just brought it to her, and it took some convincing. I don't think she was super thrilled about it. It's definitely not her niche. So it was definitely something she was going out of her comfort zone to do.
There you go. And is that still available for purchase or anything like that? Or is that something you've just gone, no, that's a different part of my life. I've removed that from my website and all that sort of stuff.
No, it's still available. It's my website, thefartcloset.com, has links to whether it be stories. I've done captions. The videos are there too. So yeah, I that all my content's still there. I'm hopefully re-entering that industry as well. Might just be with the face sitting aspect. We'll see. What kind of models we can work with. But my hope is to get back into making content in some way.
Fantastic. Well, look, I think I'm out of all, I guess we'll say, serious questions.
Sure.
Oh, the fun. But maybe now we can end up with some fun stuff that people have been asking us to ask you, and we can go through and and then we can wrap it all up.
From one of our audience members, how many times have you got pink eye?
No.
Having never been like directly face farted, or like very few times other than creating content, I don't recall ever getting pink eye as of yet.
Okay.
So I perhaps just lucky, clean people. I'm not sure exactly what the exact result of pink eye is.
Fart sex.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's right. That's precisely right.
That's right. If you said the audio aspect is an important aspect to the fart itself, is a substitute is a substitute type of fart sound, does that do anything for you? So if you hear like
A whoopee cushion?
Yeah, like a whoopee cushion, or like in the sexual setting, like a whoopee cushion or an arm fart, or those hand farts you can do, or like a farting sound machine in a sexual setting, will that help the arousal aspect, or is it because it's not from it's not from a person, it's not good?
I think it really depends. I think you can be really strategic, whether it be, I think many times those are sound effects that are often the most convincing, especially in an edited video.
Yeah.
So yes, I think if those are done in a way that someone knows what they're doing with editing, they know timing, they know when a fart should be coming out of a body, as it were. I think I don't know if not everyone would agree with this. I think many people are like, no, they have to be natural. They have to be, this and that. And they'll stand firm with that. Me with the fantasy, like, no, I think as long as I don't know it's fake, like if I don't see the whoopee cushion or whatever, if the illusion can be maintained, then I think there are aspects that can certainly be fooled in that way.
Yeah. With different sounds, obviously different sound of different farts. You said a low one is preferable more than the other ones. Are there people out there that are into farts that like go up or down in pitch as time goes on in your experience, or is it strictly like a solid tone of a fart sound?
I mean, I can't speak to the preciseness of that, but I would say definitely there is a variety of enjoyment in terms of sound. I don't think it's everyone that enjoys boisterous or bubbly, as it were, farts. But I couldn't say for certain.
Yeah.
Those are certainly the most people who talk about that are certainly the most vocal, I'd say. But I don't know. I think there are plenty of people who enjoy the whole spectrum of sound.
Excellent. If you said the smell of the fart is something you enjoy as well. I mean, there's a big joke, obviously, of farting in a jar and sort of storing it with the smell and opening up a fart in a jar. Is that something? I don't even know how to ask this. Sorry, this is from our audience. I guess farting in a jar and retaining some of that smell, is that something you've ever done or thought about or fantasized about, or to carry like a little fart around with you?
No. I mean, the fart jars certainly have been a popular topic, especially with the Stephanie motto. I forget what she got famous of from The Bachelor or something. I forget. Okay. But yeah, with her fart jars and her couple news stories, the fart jars definitely became a bit of an excitement. But no, I'm not really into that. I'm not it's not something whether doing it myself has never been appealing to me, and purchasing one, I'm a bit too frugal and minimalistic for that. But I just don't see the practicality of it. I'd rather spend that money on paying for a session with a dominatrix than a facsimile with a jar.
Yeah. And I don't know what the conversion rate will be here in Australia. What does a fart session cost with a dominatrix in the USA?
I don't know if they upcharge for farting particularly. It hasn't been my experience. But typically the dominatrix I've seen, or at least from the dungeon that I tend to call or make appointments from, is about $400 an hour.
Okay.
400 US. So when the prices go up, supply and demand, and that means more people are getting into farts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose so, yeah.
Fair enough. I guess the final... I don't even know where you're going with
that.
No,
because you said you don't know if you're upcharging. They're upcharging for the farts. Well, maybe you've got to call in and ask for a session that doesn't involve farts and find out.
For sure.
Find out what's going on.
I get what you're going with.
But yeah, I'm guessing it's not... I don't think fart is the largest kink that people are calling up for dominatrix.
I think the dominatrix aspect's already the kink that they're asking for.
Yeah.
It's you're writing hot wax on the car after
it's a bit of an add-on. It's sort of a bit like the low-cost airline carrier. They're not obviously charging on, but they could. We should consult to the dominatrix. Do you want economy plus? Do you want a meal with this? We could be charging for smells and for sounds.
Is it like a selecting off a menu? Do you go the base price and then you add on you get your chicken Caesar salad and you want bacon in that, you add the bacon?
No, in my experience, it's just been flat. Yeah. I don't think there's I only said the upcharge just because I'm not sure. Yeah. But no, I imagine sessions are just flat rate, and the fetishes that you want are just included as part of the session rate.
That makes more sense to me. Kieran's got his own way of pricing things over there. And the final big question I have is what was the impact of South Park when they talked about Brazilian fart porn? Did that help encourage the community, or did that bring a lot of negativity to the community?
It's funny. I don't recall much discussion within the community about that. It's possible I just wasn't in message boards and such at the time. Once I started making stories on my own website, I kind of didn't have I kind of let community come to me and hey, I like your stories, or a chat box on my website or stuff. So I hadn't heard too much about that. But I can't imagine. I think in many cases, the exposure in any direction tends to help more so than hurt. That's my belief, anyways. I think
that would be my first experience to fart porn or farting in pornography or in sexual acts in general. I'm guessing what would be in your understanding of
fawn. We'll call it fawn.
Fawn.
Yeah.
Okay. What would your experience be like the most culturally significant thing to help boost your community, or how to boost the fart fetish community itself? That's the only one I could think of is the South Park.
For sure. I think it's going to depend on who you talk to.
Yeah.
But I think definitely some people would say, as I just mentioned, the Stephanie Motto fart jar story. I think that definitely gave some exposure. Again, people are going to take from it or perceive of it what they want. If they have a negative opinion of farts or have it after reading it, they're probably always going to be that way. And those who are into it or interested by it will be interested. It's kind of what you said earlier, Kieran, of like, there's a disgust factor of like, this is totally disgusting, or like, that's not so bad. I think it comes down to that. It's the litmus test of like, how do people react to this? Is this something they really need to cringe away from hard, or they're just like, nah, I'm not into this, but do you. So yeah, I think it's very much that in terms of the highest like pop culture, as it were, reference. South Park, I would say, would be probably the biggest one seen. But there's tons of ones that are people mentioning now that I haven't seen that are in cartoons, contemporary cartoons. For me, one of the biggest ones that was, I guess, impactful to me was like Angry Beavers. If you remember that show at all from the 90s,
yeah.
There was like a fart domination episode where one of them accidentally farted in the face, and the whole episode was like, I'm going to get revenge on you. And it was like waiting for when the revenge was coming, which of course came at the very end of the episode. But the revenge was him, again, farting on the other one's face. Oh. So not that you saw it, like it was just like the, coming to camera, close up, zoom in and cut to black. Yeah. But yeah, the idea was there. That was kind of the most impactful or the most similar to my fetish, or the way I take the fetish.
Amazing. Well, look, Raj, you've been an absolutely amazing guest to talk to. So much insight, so much. I've learned so much throughout this whole process here. I'm sure that when this podcast comes out, more people will have more questions, so we'll have to have you back in the future. But if people want to find out more about you, where can they go to listen to you talk about all this sort of stuff?
I think easiest is just fartfetishpodcast.com. It redirects to eproctophile.org, which is kind of why I did it. Eproctophilia is hard to spell. It's kind of hard to find. So fartfetishpodcast.com redirects right there. There's informative stuff there, like other notable figures who have had farts in their background, Stephen King being one. So interesting stories, interesting backgrounds. It's a just something I've enjoyed doing to try to help this fetish get a little more normalized. If we could get it on the level, in my mind, of like foot fetish or where furry's kind of approaching, I think that would be a great place.
Yeah, you know what? I actually asked my wife, what would you rather me have, a foot fetish one or a fart one? And I think the fart one won out, which I thought was very interesting, to be perfectly honest. But
very interesting.
But we'll leave it at that.
We'll have her on the podcast, and we'll find out about from her.
That's right. Well, look, Raj, we cannot thank you enough for coming on the show. You've been an absolute star to us today and coming on.
It's been a pleasure, Raj.
But ladies and gentlemen, for all of your wanking needs,
fart needs,
Raj, our fans we call wankers. Wankers is pretty much a term of endearment here in Australia, so
sure.
Our fans are called wankers. But for all your wanking needs, make sure you follow us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and Spotify. And if you'd like to send us some hate mail, some death threats, some rants, or some questions for Raj that hopefully we can have him back next time and ask him, make sure you email us at weonlydoonetakePodcast@gmail.com. Raj, thank you so much once again for coming on the show.
No, thank you so much for having me. I really loved it.
And Kieran?
We'll see you next Thursday.
You are listening to We Only Do One Take Podcast. The only podcast in the world that is a complete shit show.